Welcome to A Place for Film, the IU Cinema podcast. On this week's episode, we're reviewing the Indy Film Fest. All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Andy Hunsucker.
And I'm Jason Thompson.
And we're back. We're back. We took about a month or so off from this studio anyways. We were out in the world doing stuff, but Jason's married now. He's got the ring to prove it. He could have just bought a ring, I guess.
That's true.
But I don't know. I was at the wedding. It seemed legit.
Yeah, there's paperwork.
Yeah. Before you continue, I totally forgot to do something. There's a person sitting across from us.
That's true.
Our production assistant, Sarah.
Yes.
I haven't done this in a while, so
You're still getting used to it.
still getting back into the flow. Yeah. So our production assistant, Sarah Doyle, is sitting here with us, and she will be helping us talk about the Indy Film Fest, but other stuff as well. So
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the Indy Film Fest review. I got to spend some time at the Indy Film Fest. We all got to spend a little bit of time there. I got to spend, I think, the most time there.
Spent the least amount of time.
Jason was there for one evening.
One night.
One evening.
One night only.
But yeah, so I've got a list of about 15, 20 films here that I saw. But I'm not going to talk about every single one of them because I did that last year and I don't think it was really worthwhile. So let's talk about opening night. We were all at opening night. The Oranges was the film. And this is a film that's not – it's going to be released in like –
November,
like holiday time.
Yeah.
And it was set sort of around holiday times, at least part of it was. So that was part of it. It's about a lot of people you would recognize in this film. Hugh Laurie is in this, who plays Dr. House. Yeah.
Doesn't look like him at all, though.
No, looks
He's
weird.
very clean.
Very clean, and he, something else was different about him.
Yeah.
Well, obviously his accent wasn't there, but just like a chameleon.
Yeah.
Although I guess he was doing that before House.
That's true.
So.
That's true. Allison Janney is in this. Oliver Platt is in this. Adam Brody is in this, sort of at different parts of the film. I can't remember Alia Shawkat is in this, and I can't remember the other girl's name. She's on Gossip Girl. I don't remember her real name.
I just realized that almost every single one of those people became famous because of television.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
All of them are pulled from television shows.
Yeah. Except, what's the other woman's name?
She was in 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Yes.
That's true.
And I can't remember her name either.
Yeah.
But anyways.
You'd recognize her.
Anyways, the plot of the story revolves around these two families that live across the street from each other. They're all best friends, and, one of the daughters comes home for Thanksgiving or Christmas or something and falls in love with the father from the other family.
Her parents' friend.
Yes, her parents' best friend.
Her father's best friend.
Her father's best friend. Yeah. She falls in love with her father's best friend, and they start a relationship. And then it goes nuts.
Sure.
It reminded me a lot of Juno. The whole idea of trying to make an uncomfortable situation funny. Yeah. That was what I took away from it the most.
Okay.
I thought it was really, really funny. I laughed a lot during the film.
Had some really good one-liners. Some
one of the best one-liners I've ever heard.
Yeah,
Adam Brody.
There's a few of them. Yeah.
Adam Brody has one of the best lines.
I think I know which one you're
in the
talking
history
about.
of film.
Yeah.
That was amazing. But it also kind of tries to keep it real a little bit, at least in between these two people. It's like it's not like a parody. It's like what would happen if these two people who are not supposed to be getting together? What would happen? What would happen to the people around them? Yeah. So
I briefly tweeted about this right when we saw it. That I tried to sum it up as easily as I could, and it came down to that I really liked it. I just didn't believe it.
Yeah.
I think it was my issue with it. I just could not come to the point where I believe that these two people were legitimately falling in love. I thought it's almost like how American Beauty does it, like where it's a lustful type of relationship, and one side one side is just desperately needing to find a connection with somebody, whereas the other person was just plain as if the other one was a toy. Whereas this one, I feel like they tried to make both characters come to the same point, and it's just like because one character is obviously way older than the other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I really had a hard time believing that both were on almost the same maturity level as the other, that being more mature than I thought they should be, at least. So I was having a real hard time making that work in my mind. And then there was a few sequences where I just didn't, I don't know, it just seemed a little too whimsical, which I would believe if one was coming up or coming down, whereas it just felt like they were both at the same level to start with.
And it was all of a sudden, too. It was like in between Thanksgiving and Christmas that he moves out his wife and he moves her in. And that was my major problem, too. It wasn't really defined, their relationship. Like, was it passion? Was it actual love? Was it just lust?
Yeah, there was, I understand why they didn't put a sex scene in there, but they never really made it clear whether or not they were physically involved.
Sure.
Yeah.
You could walk away from that movie and make the argument that they never, ever had sex.
That's true.
Like, their relationship was completely non-physical.
Her, of course, being of age, easily of age.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's not like she's 16. She's like she's graduated from college.
Sure.
She's like early 20s. Yeah. But still, he's 50, so and married.
Yeah. But what was really unique about it was that it was all based on relationships. So like everyone had a connection to the other person in some way. But one thing I think you noted, Andy, that they didn't really develop was the daughter.
Yeah, the narrator of the story.
It starts with her, and then literally she just disappears. Like, it doesn't seem like anything. And I think maybe that's where it goes wrong. It would have been very interesting to see the story, especially that romantic relationship, unfold with her as the center rather than her as the center and then suddenly becoming a bystander. Yeah. And they don't really honestly do a good job pulling her back in either. Like, I could have forgiven them for that if they just had to because there's so many people involved to sort of push her aside and then pull her back in, which they never really did that. Yeah. So that was really weird.
And it might be a factor of the fact that you have so many well-known people in the cast. You've got to give them their screen time. You're bringing these people in because people recognize them and they're great actors. So you've got to, you got to pull them in. But I did like that everyone had sort of a little sub-story. It wasn't just, it was sort of, we're meeting all these people because they're connected to these two, but they all sort of have their own thing.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And one thing I think I pointed out, I don't know if I may have just pointed out after the movie, was that I had a really hard time believing the parents as couples. I almost wanted to swap partners.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just I was having a really hard time believing. I guess we can't remember
Catherine
who she is.
Keener.
Catherine Keener.
That's who it was.
Her and
Hugh
Laurie.
Yeah, Hugh Laurie.
I wanted to say Dr. House, but it is the case. You know who I'm talking about. I just didn't believe them as a couple because you don't really. I think that's what you just have no development there.
Yeah.
It just is kind of like broken off all of a sudden. She's great by herself. I thought that was funny. I thought she by herself was hilarious. She had some really funny moments. I did. Allison, Janney, and Oliver Platt. I did believe. I think I came to enjoy their relationship together.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's because in the first 20 minutes, 15 minutes or so, we're told those two are having problems.
Yeah.
We never really see that they're having problems. We're just told like they're having problems, and they seem fine to me.
Yeah. They did seem.
They look okay.
And it was funny because it would be like if they had shown us just from everything from the outside, you would come to believe that they're okay. But no, we know we're spending time with them, like in their house by themselves. Nothing seemed wrong at all between the two. But I don't know. It just seemed a little off, those relationships, because it does almost start off as like a bromance. Like those two guys are clearly way more connected to themselves than they are, or with each other than they are their wives. It's very, very obvious, and that's great, and you totally come to believe that. But yeah, although I did kind of enjoy the fact that there were different sort of age stages where it was just like clearly the two women. And I guess the guys didn't seem immature. They just were immature in their own special way together. Like they were just like, they were very, I don't know. It was just weird because this is like they have stupid things that they talk about. And then like, it's just so trivial. Yeah. But they clearly know it and they recognize it, but they just keep doing it anyways. Yeah. Like Oliver Platt's character is just obsessed with like good housekeeping. Essentially, like he knows every like product that is great and not great and like tests everything out and buys stuff for other people because it's like the best on the market. Yeah, I thought that was really funny. But yeah, I think my issue with it was what they were trying to say with it. Yeah, I think it's just because I hadn't heard of it really. Yeah, I'd heard maybe a couple references to it before we saw it, and then again, it's obviously special privilege to see it before it even comes out wide.
Yeah,
so,
I think it was at Toronto or something,
was,
and then but it'll be out in theaters in October, November, somewhere in there.
I think it has a chance of doing well if they advertise it properly.
Oh yeah,
I think it's worth seeing.
Oh yeah,
but
definitely.
it's just there was some issue. I had some issues with it, but I think maybe it's just because it was oversaturated with characters.
Yeah, and
in a sense,
none of their decisions were all that believable.
Yeah.
Like nobody had a really believable reaction until Catherine Keener when she drives around through the yard.
Yeah,
was the most believable.
Her breakdown,
I'm waiting for somebody to like freak out and break down, and it never really happened.
Yeah, it just kind of seemed like everyone just took it like, okay, this is a completely normal situation, whereas us as the audience were just like, no, but that's why we're reacting to it whenever when they finally get to those explosive scenes or those one-liners. It's just that's why they're so funny, because I do feel like, and maybe that's on purpose. Maybe they did that, like maybe they pulled back on it so that those sort of explosive scenes are just like so out there that it's just hard to not just laugh about it and react to it. But I think that was the best way I could come up with it, was that it was I liked it, but I just didn't believe it. And for me, that really breaks movies. Like it just, if I have a hard time connecting to it, or at least like you're obviously distracting me for enough time, but maybe it's still too much for me to try to figure things out and piece it together, because it is a little slow paced at times. Yeah. But
all right.
It is what it is.
Yeah. So we had the privilege of getting some early screeners. So you have seen a few other films, Jason, just a couple. But we can talk about a lot of stuff. I'm going to kind of limit myself to things that really stood out to me. But just overall, the festival, I thought, again, a great job by everyone there. Everything was running smoothly as far as I could tell. There was one film that they had a technical problem. They had to go to like a backup copy that wasn't super high quality, but they
had it.
That happens. Yeah. Stuff like that happens at the cinema too. So it's like, it's not uncommon. It was not unknown. Sure. Last year I spent a lot of time watching short films. I saw maybe, of the 8 short programs they had, I saw maybe 5 of them. I didn't really do that this year, so I only saw a few short films. What I really focused on this year was the documentaries for some reason. And I think that was because every documentary I saw was really good, like really, really, really good. So one in particular that I saw was called Wonder Women. And when I first saw the premise for this, I was like, I kind of want to see it, but I'm wary. Like, I don't know if this is actually going to be like worth seeing, because it's basically like charting the history of feminism using Wonder Woman as a backdrop. Like, how does Wonder Woman change as feminism changes? And I was blown away by it. I thought it was really, really good. It was really about sort of like the history of Wonder Woman, and the guy who created, Wonder Woman, and how the character changed with the times and how people kind of brought it back. But it really kind of kept that focus, which was impressive. I kind of thought, they'll kind of talk about Wonder Woman for about 10 minutes, and then they'll talk about other stuff in the real world. But it really was about kind of Wonder Woman and how that character changed, and how she was portrayed in the 40s versus how she was portrayed in the 60s, and really didn't take itself too seriously. Understood that some of it was a little ridiculous, but just a really great film. Just a really great film. I highly recommend if you get a chance to see that. It's Wonder Women, and I can't remember there was a subtitle to it, but I can't really remember what the subtitle was. And one other documentary, I'm going to save my very favorite documentary for the end, but there was another one called Detropia, which is on the cinema schedule, so you'll have a chance to see that. It was about Detroit and what has happened to Detroit over the past, decade or so. How, Detroit used to be this bustling metropolis, one of the biggest cities in the country, and now it's, the city structures are still there, but the people are just leaving in droves. And it took a really sort of broad view of everything that's going on. I almost feel like it took too broad of a view, because it really tried to cover the residents and the mayor and this specific guy and people who are what? RoboCop is not involved in this documentary. But talking about talking to these two artists who are like, oh, it's great for us because we're used to living in places that yeah, exactly. It's like look at how nice this place is for so cheap. I don't have any money. This is great. But
I carry a gun and knives and I have a whole artillery right here.
Well, no, that's the thing. There's no crime in his area because there's no people there. He's the only one living in like 6 square blocks. Yeah. So it's like, who would bother him? Who would even realize there was anyone there? But it really kind of focused on this one guy who owned a bar, and his bar was down the street from one of the major engine plants or whatever that GM or Ford had, and then it closed down. So his business just cratered. But he kept his business going, and it was really focusing on him talking about now they're making the Chevy Volt and they're making it in Detroit. So maybe my business is going to pick back up if they sell a lot of these because they'll have to make more. It really focused on him mainly. He was sort of the main focus, but they also were in meetings with the mayor of Detroit and at town hall meetings and stuff. And there was a couple of scenes with this sort of urban explorer who was wandering around empty buildings, and that was what the problem for me was. It was kind of scatterbrained. It was yeah, you're giving me a very broad perspective of what's happening, but give me a message other than this is bad.
So it jumped around.
It jumped around a lot.
Do you think it would have been better if it was shown in 3 parts? Or
possibly.
Something?
I think it would have been better if they just stuck with the one guy and maybe talked to 1 or 2 other people. Okay. Because this one guy was really eloquent and really smart and talking about a lot of these things, and but at the same time he was kind of he was really relatable. He wasn't like a college professor. He was a former high school teacher, and he ran a restaurant, but that was a restaurant bar. But he just had a lot of opinions, and he's been living there for so long. You trust that he knows what he's talking about. They also and maybe there was another section that was really interesting about the guys who were in the union, one of the GM union. I can't remember which one it was, but talking about the president of the union and how he used to have hundreds of members and now he has 30 people in this branch of the union, and how they have to keep giving things up to that. And that's the thing. It's I don't want to be told what to think, but I want you to at least give me a perspective. Give me your perspective. What do you think? Is there a solution or what? It just felt like at the end I was the only thing I was left with was, yeah, it's really bad that happened to that city. It's is it fixable? Is it possible? Yeah. Is anything going to happen? Is anything going to change? Or should they just move out? Should they bulldoze the city? What? Give me a perspective. Give me one person who has a real perspective. And I didn't feel like that was really a strong aspect of the film. I still think it's worth seeing because it's a fascinating story, but I just felt like I just didn't have that that sort of culmination of here's where all these lines are leading. So, yeah. Anyways, Sarah, you were there for a couple of days. What did you see that you liked?
Well, speaking of documentaries, I saw Brothers on the Line.
Okay.
That one was pretty good. I liked how the scope of it kind of changed as it went along. I thought that it was going to be really broad and about unions and, labor laws, and it kind of turned out to be about this one guy, Don Ruther. And it was good as far as that. I don't know. I had it also, it started out and it took about 45 minutes before it really focused in on where it wanted to be. So that's kind of good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really decided whether I liked that better or worse. Because I felt like it could be 2 parts, or 2 separate documentaries to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I liked that.
Yeah.
My favorite one that I saw was Aficionados.
I did not see that.
You didn't see that one?
No.
That one was really good. It was Arturo was the director. He was the writer, director, producer, star, and editor. So I'm impressed by that. I'd say with the first 10 minutes of that one, I was really questioning whether or not I was going to make it through a whole movie. You know, I thought might be a long 2 hours because it started out with right up in your face shots and just people talking about random, and then it would skip to somebody else. So I had that moment like of scare, panic. Like,
did I make the wrong choice?
I know, we may have made a bad decision here, but I didn't. It actually turned out to be the best one that I saw. It was all improv, I guess. Apparently there was a script with no dialogue and all the characters. It was actually filmed, I guess, in the actors' homes and places of work with a handheld, and it turned out really well. I really wonder how long it took to edit, because the editing was amazing. I think that's what pulled it all together when you have something that was so probably really choppy from all the improv. But I really enjoyed that one the best, I think.
Yeah. A Place for Film is recorded at WFIU Studios in Bloomington, Indiana.